Ladies, gentlemen, and Harajam of all ages, yesterday I finally got to share with you all some details about my recent experience getting my own personal hands-on with the Spiritborn class, thanks to Blizzard for inviting us down, but that's far from the only thing going on in the world of Diablo that is new at the moment, with the full reveal stream from the developers for Spiritborn taking place yesterday, where they dived fully into the lore of the class and everything like that, and honestly, I consider all that stuff to be incredibly cool, but I'm also self-aware enough to know that I'm not the person you come to hear about Diablo lore, so I'm not going to really worry about talking to you guys about that side of things, and instead we'll briefly talk about a couple of uniques that were shown for Spiritborn during this stream that didn't come up in my own video, and then we'll talk about the recently announced changes coming to the game in Season 5, specifically with a lot of this being changes from how things already were in the PTR that many players actually have dipped their toes into a few weeks back. First things first, let's talk the Spiritborn stuff. All the legendary aspects were in my video yesterday, but they did show some uniques on stream, and I found one myself in my gameplay that they have not talked about yet. On stream then, the ones were the Ring of Centipede Eagle, which causes all pestilent swarms that you spawn from any skills or aspects spawn orbiting around you instead of whatever their normal pathing would be, as well as generating resource per hit and adding in a pestilent swarm effect that just spawns every 10 seconds from you naturally too. Then there's the Scorn of the Earth unique boots, and these are going to be an extremely heavy use, almost definitely in the vast majority of the builds, with the unique effect being 50% increase to Soar's damage, which is just okay, but more importantly, it turns your regular evade button into activating Soar instead of just a normal evade, which is a targeted teleportation-like skill. This gives Spiritborn an effect similar to the teleport enchantment for Sorcerer. However, worth noting as well with this one is that it has bonus evade charges as an implicit skill, but also attacks reduce evade cooldown as an affix on the item itself, which is actually really neat to have both of those together, and knowing some ways that Spiritborn synergizes around evades, this could actually be pretty nasty once in proper build setups. Then we saw a new unique Quarterstaff, which is one of the two new weapon types being added with Spiritborn, and this one has the unique effect of increasing the damage of all basic skills the class has, as well as forcing them all to use their third strike variant on every cast instead of just the third one, with every third cast now basically attacking 3 times. This is pretty special and unique to Spiritborn, as a specific part of the class's design is that every one of its basic skills has a special part of it that is only activated every third cast of the skill, so this leans the class fully into basic skills in a surprisingly controllable but specific way to this class, which is pretty neat as far as I'm concerned. Then for the unique that I found in my own personal gameplay that I've not seen actually talked about yet, this is the Ring of Gorilla Centipede, and the effect of this is that it generates Vigor, which is your class resource, every time that you deal Thorns damage, and you gain the passive effect of the Toxic Skin skill even when you aren't using Toxic Skin. Basically, they are adding a whole bunch of ways on these uniques to basically have the effects of different skills even if you don't have the skill on your bar to begin with, which is quite interesting, honestly. Past that then, let's dive into the changes being made to Season 5 since the PTR, as they've been coming out of the woodwork this past week, with a number of creators now allowed to talk about some conversations with the developers that did happen a few weeks ago. That said, to keep a somewhat similar theme to the last section, let's start with uniques. We know that the developers plan to rework pretty much every single unique in the game ahead of this upcoming season to bring them in line with their design philosophy for items, as that, is evolving and changing each season. And so the general idea is to make these unique items feel more special, give them all affixes that normally wouldn't exist in their slots, or make the effects on them just better in general, make them genuinely worth using, because in Season 4, they pretty much weren't. That said, Frostburn now has 5 affixes: lucky hit chance, attack speed, increased to both fire and cold damage, and 2 separate 40% lucky hit chances to apply elemental damage, 1 cold and 1 fire, as well as increasing the lucky hit chance freeze on the item to an incredibly high amount to 60% at maximum roll. Flicker Step has had its affixes changed as well. Basically, the all stats affix was replaced with lightning resistance, which isn't necessarily great, but the inherent affix attack reduce evade cooldown was increased to a 2.5 second reduction, as well as it gained a second implicit affix of 30% bonus move speed after an evade. Fists of Fate now, instead of having just a pile of different lucky hit chance affix effect triggers, has attack speed, crit chance, lucky hit chance up to 51.8% bonus, which is honestly pretty massive, and it also has up to a 51.8% lucky hit chance to apply any crowd control effect at random for 2 seconds, and honestly, this feels way more accurate to like the fantasy of what this item is, the randomness of it all, and just trusting fate and such, and having proper offensive affixes on it too just makes it much more of a genuinely good item worth considering whether you should actually use it or not. For Barbarian Unique Changes then, Fields of Crimson is having its inherent affix changed to a massive vulnerable damage increase, Strength, massive damage to bleeding damage increase, and then also increased Rupture explosion size on top of keeping the old Rupture cooldown reduction affix. Battle Trance has had its cooldown reduction and maximum fury affixes removed, but its gained crit chance and ranks to the duelist passive for bonus attack speed with one-handed weapons, and the potency of the effect has also been increased at the top end. 100,000 steps has had its inherent affix changed to gain attack speed after evading, then the damage when swapping weapons, dexterity, and ground stomp rank affixes were all removed, and it instead now has movement speed per stack of walking arsenal, damage to stunned enemies, and ground stomp size as an affix, as well as the amount of fury gained from the unique effect is increased dramatically, as well as the internal cooldown on the effect being reduced from 15 seconds to 10. Past that, for Barbarian Changes in general, every single key passive for the class has been significantly nerfed in its actual effectiveness. The main reason being that these were just too big of a deal for the class and sort of defined every build in a very unchangeable way, whether it was Unbridled Rage being undeniably the king for the first couple of seasons due to the way that resources worked with the class, or Unconstrained now doing silly things now because of the way that we can keep berserking active. The class has just weighted too hard towards these key passives, and they're just too big of an effect on the actual build variety for it, and this aims to fix that across the board by lowering the effectiveness of these and hopefully, buffing other parts of the class. Then we have Druid Uniques. Great Staff of the Crone is losing all of its non-inherent affixes, being replaced with crit damage, damage to close enemies, Storm Strike chaining to extra enemies, and bonus ranks to all basic skills rather than just Claw. As well, the upper end damage bonus on the unique effect has been increased a fair amount. Mad Wolf's Glee has also had all of its old affixes removed except for bonus maximum life, now also having werewolf attack speed increases to werewolf key passive's damage effect, and bonus ranks of Digitigrade Gate for movement speed related to werewolf form. As well, this now gives more skill ranks from the effect of the unique itself. Finally, for Druid is Storm's Companion, the Lightning Wolf Pants, and all affixes have been removed from this except for the bonus ranks to wolves as a skill. These are then replaced with bonus wolves attack speed, which is great, lucky hit chance, bonus for the Pack Leader Spirit Boon, which is actually pretty crazy to just have as an affix on this item, at least in theory, then just damage reduction from close enemies. For the rest of Druid Changes, Boulder is getting a damage increase, Cataclysm is getting an accuracy fix, and they are once again buffing Rabies as a skill, removing the old natural Rabies enhancement and replacing it with an enhancement that increases the spread distance of Rabies, moving the spread speed into the baseline skill, and they've also made Blood Howl count as a shout skill by default, and all of these are just good things really, as well as a couple of key passive buffs for the class, including an increase to Perfect Storm's damage bonus and an increase to Earthen Might's proc chance. Then we have legendary aspect changes for Druid as well, a bunch of damage increases for Stormclaw, Blurred Beast, and Retaliation, then the Seismic Shift aspect that makes Earth Spike a projectile no longer adds a cooldown, which is honestly great because it was near impossible to build around a basic skill with a cooldown without it being bussedly strong to actually compensate. And they've also increased Spirit Generation of the Balanced aspect, and then some larger reworks to the Runeworker's Conduit aspect, to change the duration of the effect, make the effect scale off of weapon damage rather than being a flat number, and then also further give you a massive boost to the damage of all lightning bolt effects that Druid can proc. Moving on, we have Necromancer Uniques, Blood Artisan's Cuirass. Mostly this one has just had large increases to its affix effects, as well as replacing the Blood Orb Healing Increase affix with an Essence Generation effect on pickup of Blood Orbs, and the high-end roll of the unique effect is of course now better too. Howl from Below has had both of its lucky hit chance bonuses removed, and now makes Corpse Explosion both fear and slow enemies, as well as having bonus ranks to Corpse Explosion in general. The unique effect here again has a higher top end than it did before too. Then there is Lidless Wall. The inherent Thorns affix has been replaced with % total armor gain, and a complete replacement of all of the old affixes properly, now being flat armor, Bone Storm duration increase, cooldown reduction, and bonus ranks to all bone skills. As well, like the others, the top end version of the unique effect is just better than it was previously. Then skill changes we found out about were mostly just raising the lucky hit chance of 8 different Necromancer skills by a pretty notable amount, honestly, and then fixes to the aspect of Bursting Bones and a buff to the effect of the Inexorable Reaper's effect too. Then we have changes to Rogue Uniques. Wind Force no longer has a knockback effect on it, which is honestly nice. Eyes in the Dark has had all affixes replaced except for maximum life, with the new affixes being bonus ultimate damage, damage reduction from enemies that are affected by traps, and bonus ranks of the Aftermath passive for bonus passive regen, and energy gain after using your ultimate. Then we have Saboteur's Signet, a proper full replacement of all of the affixes, now having bonus grenade damage, increased stun grenade size, which is a sort of fun one, bonus energy for every stun grenade explosion, which is neat, and then cooldown reduction as a stat on a ring, which is also quite nice. Past that, then the exploit weakness paragon node that executes enemies below a certain health percentage no longer applies to elites, which of course does make sense, and they increase the damage cap from the no witnesses paragon node too. Finally then, for classes we have Sorcerer, and for uniques, Staff of Lam Essen, and first up, the inherent affix was changed from damage over time to raw lightning damage increases, which is no longer a part of the weapon affixes. Past that, everything but the charged bolt skill ranks have been replaced, with the new affixes on this weapon being bonus intelligence, chance to double cast charged bolts, which is pretty neat, and resource cost reduction. As well, this has also gained an increase to the top end roll of the unique effect. Past that, there is also Fractured Winterglass. This has lost the cooldown reduction and vulnerable damage affixes that it once had, and instead is now gaining chance for Frozen Orb to cast twice, and Conjuration cooldowns reduced every time that a Frozen Orb explodes, as well as increasing the ranges on the other two affixes too. The unique effect has also had an increase to both the RNG roll effects that are a part of it as well. Then final, the unique for the day then, Blue Rose. This has replaced all affixes on the ring except for Ice Spike damage, and it has gained crit chance, general cold damage, as well as chance for ice spikes to explode twice. On top of that, again, just an increase to the top end roll of the unique effect as well. As for other changes for Sorcerer, the damage of all core and mastery skills is being increased by up to 20%. Hydra is getting its own unique damage increase, as well as Ice Armor's barrier percentage is going up too. The Warmth, Align the Elements, and Mana Shield passives have all just gotten buffs to their actual percentages as well, and for key passives, Combustion has gotten a notable damage increase, and Shatter also has gotten one, but at the cost of no longer boosting its own damage when, the explosions overlap. Past that are legendary aspect changes for the class, with the aspect of Splintering Energy getting a damage increase, the Lightning Rod aspect getting a pretty fair rework, now having a set 25% chance to trigger, and moving the RNG on the roll to be an actual damage increase chance, and a rework to make it also apply to non-boss or crowd-controlled enemies, just preferring those types of things and boosting things against them more. Then finally, the Snow Veiled aspect, which now, instead of giving bonus armor on cast, just gives flat damage reduction as a percentage, which is honestly pretty much better in every scenario, as you can get flat armor elsewhere much easier than actual percent damage reduction. Moving on from classes then, some more general changes that we found out from this. A really big one is that the way that main stats scale skill damage is currently done as just a general homogenized number, but now is going to be done on a per class basis in Season 5, rather than being synchronized across the board. The main goal of this is to create another way to balance weapon slots, because different classes have different numbers of weapon slots and different numbers of affixes as a result, as the first version of this is going to be giving Necromancer, Sorcerer, and Druid 1% damage bonus per 8 main stat instead of 10 main stat, which is the base rate currently. Rogue is now gaining 1% damage per 9 main stat instead of 10, with Barbarian still sitting at the old transfer rate of 1% per 10 of the stat. So you can see that they're trying to sort of find other ways to make up for the difference in weapon slots. As well, they have gone back to having the experience gain from higher level monsters be uncapped. This is how it was a while ago, then they changed it so killing monsters more than 15 levels above you didn't actually do anything useful. Now it's going back to just a permanently upward scaling of bonuses for higher and higher level enemies, which is honestly how it always should be. On top of that, another general change, but a more specific one, which is that enchanting no longer has an angel breath cost, removing another unnecessary resource farm from the game. Honestly, while I appreciate removing points of player friction, it does feel like if we keep doing stuff like this, we'll just be completely working off of gold as our only actual resource, but they seem to have some sort of plan right now for how to rebalance the economy of resources, and I'm definitely willing to let them show us at the very least. Past that, we found out the Profane Mind Cages, which were the seasonal consumable item in Season 4 to increase the level of enemies in Helltide by 10, that also then increase the rewards that you got from killing them, are going to be added into the game permanently, so no longer a seasonal only consumable, and that unlike our current version of these, they are going to be changed to allow being stacked up to 3 times if you are really confident in your ability to tank some higher level Helltide by enemies that are like 30 levels above you. And that just about does it for today then, everyone. Just a look at some uniques shown off for the new Spiritborn class, then a full roundup of all the information coming directly from conversations with Blizzard about changes being made to the game for Season 5 that have been decided and implemented since the end of the PTR. I should also mention that we will be getting proper full patch notes for Season 5 in a couple of weeks before the season releases. This is just the little tidbits that we've been given ahead of time. I hope you all enjoyed this then, and of course feel free to let me know your own thoughts on all of this down in the comments below. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.